All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela Cass.
And so when you're listening, you're sitting down with them for those 15 minutes to an hour. What are some of the questions you're asking or you're digging into? I know you say you do an intake form, which I don't even know if I would know a lot of those answers, but I mean, I'm sure I could figure it out. But
You
what are
would.
some of the
Yeah.
things in that intake that you're doing with them that you're listening for?
It's this interesting thing. When I was in pharma, you're taught how to do sales, right? And there is a time when questions are just unnatural. And I hated the job. It was a terrible job. It was no fun. It was high pressure. I was delivering lunches. It's like, this is not where I need to be in life. But I say that because some things just come to you that when you love it and you have to know it. And I'm not saying I'm the end all be all, but I did not do well with asking questions to doctors about taking drugs or about selling drugs. But when I'm with a client or a patient and we're working through the process, going back to always asking why is kind of where I take it, it's super basic, taking it back to. So somebody tells me, I'm going to give you an example. You're going to go, what? So I have a patient who has really been struggling, potential Parkinson's diagnosis, right? Don't know for sure, but that's what they're thinking. And so we're going through his history. We talk about the trauma and over the, probably hit on, the last 10 years. So I don't know how the conversation went, but I think that I might have said, well, what happened before that? Or why did this happen? Or whatever it was. It was just, continuing to dig. Well, nobody had ever asked him this before, and he'd never told anybody this before, but he spent basically 20 years in a nuclear reactor.
That key piece.
Minor detail. Minor probably has no significance. Oh my God.
And so, and I say nuclear reactor, that's, this because I don't really know what it means, but it was 10 years in two different nuclear sort of facility kind of things, right? So I just went, okay, so that might matter a little bit. And he just never thought that it would. And I, is it the end all be all? I don't know, but I just didn't really even know what to say to that. And so that's kind of, that it was a big lesson for me too, in just never stop asking why and never keep going back further. I always go back as far as I can possibly go in their history, and just continue tweaking those questions, because a lot of times they'll go, oh yeah, well, so this happened, but I just never thought twice about it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so many professions, like you talk about being in this nuclear reactor site, but I have the thought about nurses and doctors that work these shifts that interrupt their sleep cycle and how that impacts their health down their line, right? Like they love having the 32 hours on and then they're off, right? Or whatever it is, like the 6 days and then the 2 days off or whatever. But they're going like such big sections of their life that they're like not sleeping, and it's high stress, high pressure, everything is urgent in those moments, and then down the line 40 years they're coming to see you or their medical practitioner to have a discussion because something's off, and not making the correlation.
It's true. And that's such a beautiful point, because we have so many people who struggle, whether it's from work or from just life, who are not sleeping, right? But I have had, and it's one of those situations where we made progress, but it wasn't the progress that she wanted. But she was an emergency department doctor.
Okay.
And she was in this place where she couldn't eat. She would, if she tried to eat, she would throw up. She was not losing weight. And so in our work together, we made, in my mind, really big progress, but she wouldn't lose the weight. She was no longer throwing up. She was eating normally. She was eating good food, and all of these things were happening. But she was mad. I mean, which I kind of don't blame her. If things don't, if it's not happening for you, it's not. But I told her, and I even did at least one clinical consult on her case with a clinician, right, a doctor. And I said, this is the situation. And he said exactly what I said. He said, she's not sleeping. Her hours are crazy wonky, and she's not going to lose weight if she's not sleeping. And she didn't like it. And I don't blame her. There's no blame there at all. But it's a tough spot to be, and she loved it. So, what do you do with that?
Exactly.
But it's true. Oh, this is super cool. Have you heard? I'm sure you've heard of grounding or earthing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm reading the book called Earthing right now. And there are, these really simple things that we can do that have the potential. And I can't wait to start actually just digging into this. I'm going to start telling my patients and my clients to start grounding in bed, because you can get a bed mat and put it on your bed so you're grounding while you're sleeping, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And so I have one under my desk. I have one up at the clinic because I'm on the second floor, right? But these things, this connection to the earth, and sorry, I totally went way off. But
That's
just
all
thinking
right.
about sleeping and how important it is. But if we're not connected to the earth, our cycles, our circadian rhythm, everything about us is going to be super wonky. We
Right.
don't know that. We wear rubber shoes. We have, yeah, we're in the house. We don't walk barefoot. We don't lay in the grass.
Mm.
And so these are these things that if you're not getting sleep, and you don't have a super wonky schedule, but if you're not getting sleep, because that certainly is going to promote stress, it's going to promote glucose spikes, it's going to promote, you go on down the vicious cycle right there. But something as simple as spending, 150 to 300 bucks, depending on what you want, for a mat that maybe will save your life. I mean, how cool
Yes.
is that?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and I believe Jessica shared that with us when she
Yeah.
was on.
Okay.
I'm glad that you brought that
Cool.
full circle, because
Yeah.
that is a big piece. And I think there are additional tools that people can incorporate into their everyday life that will help. And we don't want to give out any type of medical advice. So I'm going to pose this question to you, Nikki, as someone that may not have any chronic issues or ailments or pain or things of that nature.
Mhm.
Where would you tell them to start, just to do that reflective piece of looking at their sleep cycle and pattern, what they're
Mhm.
consuming, how frequently they're getting outside and being in nature and things of that nature? What advice would you give a person? Not medical advice at all. This
Yeah.
is not
Yep.
treating anyone.
Yeah. Well, it really is just some of these super basic things, and we don't often see it as basic anymore, right? We've sort of taken out this beautiful knowledge that the body has and that the earth around us has and our environment has. Everything is there for a reason. And I probably, I said it earlier, everything that I do is because of, God's guidance for me.
Mm-hmm.
I try really hard to listen. I don't always hear him, but I'm
Yeah.
trying really hard, Um, but it literally is going outside. We get stuck behind a computer, we get stuck behind a TV, we get stuck behind the video games, we get stuck behind the iPad, right? You can go on and on. And if you go outside barefoot in the sun, people are so afraid of the sun. The sun is a gift. We don't have life without the sun. And we're in this terrible place where the mainstream media and the mainstream medicine has just demonized the sun. And people will tell me I shouldn't be in the sun so much. I'm thinking, if you're not getting burnt, you need to be in the sun. If you have an autoimmune disease, you need to be in the sun, right? And that's even if, well, I won't, lots of people are low in vitamin D. And they think it's because they're not in the sun enough. And a lot of that's genetic, right? It's part of our, we've got these epigenetic variants that don't allow us to convert. And so sometimes it's just the way that it is. But it's the light, it's the infrared, I think there's so many things about the sun that we don't even understand and what it does for us and what it gives to us. But that's for me, I mean, one of the things that I tell people all the time is that's what gets me outside to meditate is, I sit in my office here and I see the sun outside, on the other side of the computer here. And I just think I have to get outside and I need to be in it. I don't care if it's 5 minutes or if it's 20 minutes, right? And I try not to ever get to the point to where I overcook myself because that's not good either, right? There's a respect in what it can do for us and how it can certainly hurt us, right? We get burnt and we peel and we do these things. This is not good for us.
Yeah.
But depending on your skin tone, I'm pretty white in the winter, but I do get darker in the summer, but I build up to it. And so anybody who is, you have a really pale complexion, you sit out in the sun for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes until you get a little bit of pink and then you go inside. And then you do it again the next day and then you go inside, right? But we all need to do it. We cover up with toxins and chemicals to repel the gift of the sun. And we're putting these endocrine disrupting, cancer causing toxins on our skin. I mean, it's so backwards. It's totally backwards. Sorry, I'll stop there if you have a question.
I do. I love where you've gone. I'd love to just hear, like, just as we talk about the sun, like, what's your thought process or just your own personal feeling in terms of how we got here? Where do you feel that we've taken that turn to get to this place where it's, don't look at the sun, don't spend too much time there, put the block on, stay away from, and I get it, like from the safety piece for those that, have those sensitivities or issues and the exposure being a challenge, but it's not for the general masses. And yet we've all just accepted this to be.
I feel like we went from I mean, I grew up in a time where we put baby oil on us and, I'm the only one, we didn't.
I did.
And then now it's like, sun factor 50 or 100. And it's like this white, you can't even see your skin. So so we've,
when did
pendulum switch? Yeah. Like huge pendulum switch.
I think that, how do I say this? I think that politics plays a big role. We've got the politics of food. We've got the politics of health. Big money plays a big role. Big food, big pharma, big government, big, and my intent is not to go political, but when you have a lot of money behind these things like the toxic sunscreens, I'm just going to say this, and I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble or not. I say it all the time though. So, it is what it is, but your Neutrogena is one of the most toxic products out there on the market. And that's all, and they're the biggest, and that's all they do is promote their crap. And okay, so let's do this. So don't take my word for it. Have y'all heard of Environmental Working Group?
Yes.
Good. Okay. No. So you're going to rabbit hole. It's the best rabbit hole ever. But Environmental Working Group, it's ewg.org. You can put in almost any product or any ingredient, whether it's food, if it's home care, if it's dishwasher, if it's laundry, if it's body care products, food, all of it, everything. You can put it in there and it will rate it for you and it'll show you why. So it'll tell you if there's EWG verified, and then there's A, B, C, D, and F. And so anybody who it is a huge database. So this is something that I will tell my clients and patients to do as we're working through, getting labs back, and their toxic load is through the roof, right? I mean, no wonder they feel bad because their body's struggling like crazy. We have to work through, okay, where are these coming from? And that's the cool thing about doing some of these labs is you can start to understand based on the type of toxin that is elevated in the body. You can say, okay, this is coming from a food or a moist environment or your body care products, or, the list goes on. And so you can take it and you can put it into EWG, and you can search for whatever you're using, or you can just put in body wash and it's going to come up and say all of these are EWG verified, and then you have your ABC and so forth.
And
It's
so
an amazing
the
resource.
ABCDEF, that's like the grading. Like if it's an F, it's like you don't
Correct.
even
use
put
it.
that on. You're gonna glow
Correct.
green. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Well, it is, and it's sad because we
It
believe
is.
when marketing tells us something is natural or it's healthy, or whatever the case may be, that we're going to believe it. I mean, and marketing's there for a reason, right? It works, and we all have to do it. It's part of it. But um, there's some out there that's just not on the up and up,
Okay.
for lack of a
Do
better word.
you recommend, you always hear about these cleanses. Do you recommend people doing like heavy metal cleanses and different types of cleanses like on a consistent basis to kind of rid your body of some of this stuff?
So yes,
Mm.
and or yes, but we've got to be really careful with these things, right? So you look at, people are doing these juice cleanses. I'm like, what's a
Yeah.
juice cleanse going to do besides spike your blood sugar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, is that really what the goal
Yeah.
is?
No.
Um, Detoxification is exceptionally tricky, and it's beautiful, right? Again, going back to this amazing gift that God put us in. We're these little cool bodies, carrying our souls around and doing all these cool things full of bugs that are our personalities. I mean, it's just fascinating. It's so fascinating. But when we're looking at detoxification, of course we've got the liver, and then we've got the lungs and the skin and the kidneys and all of these things that work together, the lymphatic system to detoxify. The liver in and of itself goes through multiple phases to detoxify. And then we got to make sure we're going to the bathroom every day. So, we have most toxins come in a fat soluble form, which means they don't just eliminate from the body. They're going to sit in the tissues because they're fat loving, right? That's what they do. They're fat soluble. They stick to the tissues and to the fat layers, the lipid layers. So in detoxification, what the liver does is it converts it into a water soluble, so then it can be eliminated. So how cool is that? That's what the liver's job is. One of them is to make that happen. Now, due to some people's genetics, due to certain variants that can be turned on or off, we can get into epigenetics if y'all want to, because that's my favorite thing in the world. But there are reasons why maybe we don't detoxify very well, or the liver is just not functioning as well as it could because it doesn't get the nutrients that it needs in order to move it through, phase 1, phase 2 detoxification. So there are lots of ways to go about this. Then you put on the layer of somebody who is super sick and super sensitive, and you start mobilizing toxins from the tissues. You start killing off microbes that carry a whole bunch of toxins on their own, right? You can start to spin people out of control. So the answer is yeah, we got to get rid of that stuff, but we got to do it very carefully. And if somebody's super healthy and you want to do a quarterly detox, I think that's great. But what we need to keep in mind, we don't detox once a quarter. We detox every single day, all day long. It's part of who we are and what we do. So, in the food that we eat, in the water that we're drinking, right? Good, clean, clear water. Most of the filters out there are trash. So, drinking clean water, eating going back to what we were talking about earlier, these basic optimization, tactics.
Yeah.
Eat real food. Eat your vegetables. If you can't eat vegetables, that's a symptom. There are people who are like, they don't sit well with me. Okay, so that's a symptom. Or they can't eat beef. Like, oh, well, if you can't eat beef, you're not digesting it well. It's a symptom. So these are other things that, you ask me what the questions. I also have to be trained to hear what they're saying, even if they don't know that's what they're saying. And there's a lot that I don't know, but some of these things are things that you listen for. Sorry, I keep going back and forth, but
No, but it's so interesting because you just said that about beef, about certain vegetables and stuff. It's like how many of us have symptoms? We don't
Mhm.
even realize it. It's just become something that just this is just how my body works. I don't eat that because it upsets my stomach. Well,
Mhm.
why does it upset your stomach? So not asking those
Yeah.
why questions
Mhm.
for everything.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I get, and then I think to your point, and you mentioned it, I think at the beginning with insurance, I think people don't call the doctor, go to the doctor, ask the questions because they're like, well, I can't afford it. My insurance doesn't cover that. I can't do that. And so are there options for people when that's not an option for them, or at least a starting point to know, okay, yes, this is something that you should probably bring to your doctor?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I talk to people for a while before I ever bring them on as clients
Yeah.
or patients, right? So it's a let's talk about what's going on, and I can tell you what I think I see. And part of my intake is what's called an MSQ. It's a medical symptom questionnaire. And it's just rating your symptoms and rating what's going on with your body. And it can be eye-opening for the patients and the clients, and it can help me to see where some of the main issues are. So that's the stuff that we can talk about.
Yeah.
And then, if it's not something that I think that I can take on, then I'm going to refer and say, yeah, you need to go to a doctor.
Yeah.
And I have people who are open-minded and are kind of along the same lines as me, right? It's the drugs. If the drugs are necessary, sometimes drugs are necessary, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we are in acute situations and we've got to manage that situation.
Mhm.
And that's where our medicine is amazing. It's really great in acute care, but it's the chronic care that is more problematic. And so it is hard, and I think it's a battle that most of us in sort of this functional holistic world battle with, because most of us don't take insurance.
Yeah.
But because I don't take insurance, I can spend as much time with you as you want. And
Yeah.
we can talk through it. My goal is to be a partner with you throughout the process. Most of my people I see every week. Sometimes it's every other week.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's even a little more than that because there's enough going on where we just got to work through stuff. And when the body's changing, it can be scary.
Yeah.
People are afraid of symptoms.
Yeah.
And they're also afraid of what's going to happen, without the symptoms, right? It's
Mhm.
being afraid of change.
Yeah.
And I get it. I do. But it's, my role and my goal is, again, to be that partner and say, this is not an emergency. It's okay. If it is an emergency, there's a, emergency department down the road, but
Mhm.
that's a, symptoms are going to happen. Even when there's kind of a healing crisis, we can see lab markers go out of whack. We can see liver enzymes go out of whack. If we're kind of going through a healing crisis, we can see, multiple, I don't need to go too deeply into it, but multiple markers that can start going super wonky. You're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Well, it's the body's working.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing too, because when you give it what it needs, it's
Hmm.
going to start doing all of these things that it couldn't do before.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting that you talk about the symptoms that people have and kind of the fear of letting go of those symptoms. I think the other piece of that is the realization that we have symptoms, right? I think you get to a certain point in life and you've just had an ailment for so long, it's part of who you are and you just let it go, right?
Yeah.
Even
Mhm.
what you consume or how your
Yeah.
body feels. And you've let go of it being a challenge because you haven't been able to identify the source. And then you start doing all of this other work and it comes back up again. It's that's right. I forgot that my shoulder
Mhm.
hurts whenever it rains, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
Nikki, if someone wants to work with you or get a hold of you, tell us a little bit about that process and how they can get a hold of you to connect and maybe get started on their journey as they progress through this.
So I'm Taste Life Nutrition everywhere. So it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, Taste Life Nutrition, all the socials, the website. I do have, so that MSQ, I have on my website that you can go and fill out, and it just comes straight to me. And then I reach out to people and we chat about it. So whether it's, me, if I can help, or, I know a lot of really cool people who do a lot of really cool things. So I'm always open to refer to, my goal. I really just want to be of service the best that I can and have some fun.
I love that.
Tell us
Taste
a
Life
little bit of,
Nutrition everywhere.
tell us a little bit about your podcast and what made you start the podcast, and what's kind of the, what do you hope to gain from that? What is your message?
So
Knowledge.
the funny thing, early on, and I had been practicing for a couple of years. I met a friend of mine, and he said, "I have this radio show. Do you want to join me?" And I was like, "No."
Absolutely not.
That's how all great things start.
Yeah. With a no. A no.
It scared the crap out of me. I had to hound him, like, send me your questions. I got to know what I got to talk about. What if I don't have an answer? And it's this whole thing. And so I did that a few times, scared to death every time. And on top of it, it's a radio show, so it streams live. So it's kind of like this, right? You're gonna see the whole thing. There's no do-overs.
Yes.
It is what it is. And so it wasn't, I don't know, a few months later, after I'd been on his show a couple of times, he and the owner of the studio or the station said, "You should have your own show." And I went, "Hell no." No, So here we are 5 years later. I started my show. It's just Taste Life Nutrition Radio and Podcast. It is a radio show first, and then we turned it into the podcast. And as I had just, had decided to do this, I was thinking about what is this show? Why do I want to do this? And the word that kept coming to me was truth. And it's kind of funny too, because at that same time, I started the show, it was first week in January. So I had a friend who had a party back in December, and it was a, whatever kind of party, but it was let's, have your word of the year bracelet. I was like, I'm 45, whatever old I was, I was like, is this really what I want to do? Anyway, but I did, and that's the word that popped up. And so my bracelets here are my words that I've done every year since then. And it's fun this is again, a little off topic, but to watch how I've changed in my approach to things. But truth was the first one, and truth is the show. And it really is doing my best to get good information to people who may not know what they have accessible to them. New, cutting edge, people who want to serve, people who are there to give and to love. And I say this a lot because it really is everybody who I've brought on the show to date, they're all entrepreneurs. It's not all just health and so that's a lie. It's all health and wellness, but health and wellness is physical, mental, emotional, relational, spiritual, financial, right? It's all of it. Yeah. And so it's a pretty broad show. But it's people who just have some goodness to share and, and have special capabilities or whatever it is. We've had some really interesting, unique people on the show, and that's their goal. Is I just want to get good information out to people. And I want them to know, even if it's not, if I don't get clients or patients or customers or whatever from it, at least I'm able to share what I know. And so sometimes it's just me. And then most of the time I have people on with me, but yeah, that's what it's been over the last few years. It started out at 30 minutes every other week, and now it's an hour every week, and booked out through, I don't know, September, October, November, something like that, I think. But it's
fantastic. Yeah. So that might be a great place for people to start to get to know you, to learn some great stuff from you. So this has been amazing.
Yeah. And so I think that we should talk about having you ladies on with me.
Okay. Done.
You just let us know when.
Done. Love it.
We would love that. Yes.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Well, Nikki, as you talk about truth, we kind of have the same mission here at Reignite Resilience. We want to make sure that we give our listeners something tangible that they can walk away with, apply to their life. In our time together, you've shared so much already, so thank you. But is there anything that you hoped that you could share with our listeners that we haven't touched on today?
Oh, that we haven't touched on. Goodness.
Yes.
I think maybe one of the things that I learn as I work with people who are more complex is the more complex you are, the more complex people want to treat you. And I don't mean treat in a medical sense, because it's not something that I can say, but it's more, so many, like, let's try this and all of these things and these big therapies. And sometimes it's a really important thing to do. But what I find oftentimes is when we take it back to basics, that's a big piece of it. And so we talked about some of these basics, the free stuff is going outside and eating good food. But what I have in my head is something as simple as getting in good protein. And some people can't digest it well. So I'm saying, I'm taking it even back to even more basic and saying, let's get you some amino acids, right? Let's build up this baseline so your body can function. So many people are deficient because their GI is not working properly, or, we give a number of reasons, but they're not utilizing the nutrients they're taking in, or they don't eat. They're like, I can eat 5 foods. Okay, that's no good. You're definitely not, all of the things are not going to work.
Yeah.
So, and I'm also not trying to say that everything's about supplementation, although it can play a huge therapeutic role when necessary. But that's kind of my example, is really looking at basics, and hitting the foundational stuff, and then trying to work up from there. And sometimes it's not simple, and well, a lot of times it's not simple, but I think that's the piece that I see oftentimes is missed. They're coming to me with these bags and bags and bags of supplements, but everything is to treat or address, SIBO or, neurological disorders or whatever, instead of saying, are you getting your B vitamins?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to detox if you're not getting your B's.
Yes.
So I hope that helps. I hope that's a good answer.
It does. That's huge. That's huge. Well, Nikki, I think the other thing that you touched on that is really helpful as we talk about like health and nutrition and our wellness is that you mentioned the emotional piece of it as well, right? It's not just the physical changes or issues that we need to address, but it's also making sure that we're preparing ourselves to address the emotional connection to that, or even environmental, like where are we, and how are we setting ourselves up in our career and our relationships, things of that nature. It's all woven together to make us who we are. So to extract just nutrition or our wellness outside of everything else is really a challenge. We have to remember that it all comes together to make us who we are.
Everything is connected. Everything, from the internal to the external, right? Everything is connected, whether it's energetically or physically. And I think that's stuff we have to remember in our relationship with ourselves, in our relationship with our family, with our community, people we know, people we don't know.
Yeah.
Like it or not, we're all connected.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're already here. So good luck. Just doing it what you wish. I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. And Pam and I will take you up on that offer. Let us know when. We'll come out to the radio podcast. I love it. I think that's a great idea.
I love that. Very
fabulous.
Good.
We will make sure that we insert all of your contact information in our show notes so that our listeners can get a hold of you. We are looking at Taste Life Nutrition Radio and podcast, also Taste Life Nutrition on Instagram and Facebook, I believe, as well.
And the website and everything.
And the website. Beautiful, beautiful. And for our listeners that want to know more about what's happening in the world of Reignite Resilience, you all know it. Head on over to reigniteresilience.com. Until next time, we will see y'all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.